Okay, so I want to go into this real quick. Come over here. Let's talk about Social Security disability hearings, because a lot of you guys, I think you're approaching it in the wrong direction. And some of you are going to say, no, I totally get. I know how to do it. I got it. Everything's good. But remember, I come at this from a place of love, and also because I've talked with more disabled people and more disability judges than you ever will. So I want to help you understand a little bit more about what Social Security disability hearings are. Many of you go into them with the expectation that the judge, has to see, has to do something for you, which is a beginning from a wrong viewpoint. Okay. Some individuals basically come into it and they're just like, yeah, the judge has to see this. They have to know this. They've read the record 5,000 times. They got to know this. And you know what I mean? That's not really how this works. So the thing is this, okay? A lot of these medical files, they could be 2,000 pages, 4,000 pages, 10,000 pages. They can be very big. It'd be very difficult for an attorney or a judge or somebody to go ahead and read through it. The judges have writers who sit there and read through this stuff as well, but they don't catch everything. They don't. The judges have to do, on average, they usually do about 5 hearings a day, and then some days they'll basically, review decisions. There are, let's say, if there's 5 hearings in a day, you're going to get your wounded veteran who, was injured. You're going to get your quadriplegic. You're going to get your person who's got like degenerative disc disease, hip issues, shoulder issues, whatever. You're going to get your usually, like a kid type of claim where basically they have, some, congenital disorder. And then you're going to get your fibro person, your fibromyalgia person. I'm so bad. My fibromyalgia keeps me from running triathlons. I'm so bad. I'm not able to climb Mount Everest because of this. You get your fibro person. Not that, not that fibromyalgia isn't bad. It is, but it's not as bad as, multiple amputations. You know what I mean? Like I do that as a big spread. I'm not trying to make fun of fibros, but, you just got to understand, like, it's not quadriplegic. You know what I mean? It's not that. It's not blindness. All right. So, Princess Diana, thank you for the $10 donation on the last video, and the $2 donation in this video. That's absolutely amazing. And I also want to do a big shout out to ACC, who also did a massive $99 donation, which is absolutely incredible in the last video. Sorry, I had to cut it short because somebody knocked on the door, and I was just like, what's going on? What's going on? And all right. So with that said, I want to go basically into what you need to understand with these Social Security disability hearings. If you're seeking SSDI benefits, SSI benefits, Social Security disability insurance, supplemental security income, the disability programs under the federal government, then you might end up going to a Social Security disability hearing. The first thing I need you to understand is that if they've got 5 hearings based off of the logistical aspects of the math, right, they're probably going to approve 2 to 3 of those in that day. So when you're going in there, you're like, I'm super bad. My toenails really hurt. You got to understand what you're coming up against. Some of you like live in la la land where you're like, I'm so bad. You wouldn't even believe it. The other day, I couldn't even finish eating my yogurt, because it wasn't the flavor I like. Some of you are in this like, delusional, like the classic one I get is like, what's a really classic one that I get? Somebody will be like, I have anxiety, therefore I should be able to get disability benefits. I have panic attacks, therefore I should be able to get disability. That's not how it works. The whole thing that the judge is doing at these hearings is that they are assessing how much of a bullshit artist you are, how severe your impairments are, and whether or not you could go and do a full-time job. That's like their main thing. So when they're asking you questions, you know what I mean? I see Leanne there. Ann Hempel, howdy, Leanne, howdy. So I guess the big thing that I would say to you is don't have the expectation that the judge is there to do the heavy lifting to figure out whether or not you're disabled, right? That's your attorney's job. Your attorney's job is to like know the case and point stuff out. Now, if you're going in there alone and you're winging it, like, God bless you, Godspeed to you. Here's a little massage on your computer. All the best. When you go in there alone, it's the rocket docket. That's what we call claimant only hearings. They go in, the judge asks some questions. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. 15 minutes, they're out. not a real disability hearing by any stretch of the imagination of cross-examination, having the vocational expert cross-examination of the vocational. There's none of that stuff. So you're in, you're out. You know what I mean? Now, with that said, first thing the smarter claimants do when it comes to like knowing the system, not that they're like more, higher IQ, if they look at the percent passage rate of the judge. Next thing they do is they ask the attorney, hey, what does this judge like? Does the judge like these impairments? Does the judge usually approve these impairments? Because remember, some judges like to improve some impairments. Some judges like to not improve some impairments. And remember, a lot of the judges now have all been trained by the SSA. Back in the day, the SSA didn't train the judges, and we got a lot more favorable decisions back then. Now they do. There's a lot fewer favorable decisions. You know what I mean? There's a lot fewer. So with all that in mind, keeping this whole idea, keeping everything essentially that's going on, I want you to, instead of going into the hearing with the expectation that the judge has to do you a solid, I want you to go into it with the realization that you have to provide the atmosphere, the communication that the judge would need to approve you. Okay, let me give you an example. The first thing you need to know is that a lot of times, right, you don't realize when you're answering questions what next category is coming up. You're just like answering a question, then they ask another category of questions, another category of questions, and you're just going through this process where you're like, whoa, I didn't know that was coming up. You can't be that person. You got to know, right? You wake up, hygiene-related activities, shower, go to the bathroom, you're brushing your teeth, you're putting your slippers on, you're maybe getting dressed, right? Then we're going into cooking mode. Then we're going into driving mode. Then we're going into buying groceries mode. Then we're going into, laundry mode. We're going into essentially cleaning the house mode. We're going into outside activities. We're going into, hobbies. We're going into, essentially things that might bother you out in the environment: hot, cold, dust, loud sounds, vibrations, bright lights, blinking lights, pulmonary irritants. There is a process of categories that the judges go to. Is it always the same? No. But there's always groupings that go together, right? Right? Cooking, cleaning, laundry. A grouping that goes together, right? Sleep cycle, hygiene-related functions, getting dressed. A grouping that goes together. You have to understand what the groupings are and know that you're going to live in that little house of that grouping of categories until you move to the next one and the next one and the next one. Now, another thing, when you answer a question, you have to know, and this is one of the most important things in a Social Security disability hearing, how to answer the specific questions that you're being asked. It's crucial, and it's so super duper important. I want you to get it right. I want you to do well on it. So it's super duper important for you to just answer the specific questions that you are being asked. Because at the end of the day, when you go off on, story mode over there, and the judge is over here going, what the F? This is not what I asked. You've essentially put the judge into a pissy mood. So one of the things I always like to ask people is, one of the training things I do when people go into story mode, and some claimants, they just story mode, is that I will not ask a follow-up question. I will let them continue to talk for 5 to 10 minutes straight, right? Until they run out of steam, until they're empty. And then I will say to them, what was the original question asked? And they won't remember. They almost never do. Or they'll get like a piece of it right, but they won't get the full thing right. And so what happens is the claimants, you just have to understand that knowing what the actual question is, knowing at the end of the day what the judge was asking about, many of you don't really know what it is. And when you go to answer it, a lot of you don't realize the judge is asking you a question, but you're supposed to answer it from the perspective of why you can't do that thing well because of your impairment. So when the judge is like, so what kind of meals do you like to cook? That's not the question. The question is, why do you have a difficult time cooking meals as a result of your medical conditions? That's the actual question. It's not, okay, are you able to go ahead and go to the grocery store, bring them home, put them away? That's not the question. The question is, how are you limited from your medical conditions and your ability to go ahead and go grocery shopping, drive a car, look at the mirrors, get into a vehicle, look up at the aisles, pick items up off the aisles. What can you lift? Heaviest item that you could lift at the grocery store. Could you bring them home? Could you put them away? Are you able to handle your accounting when it comes to buying it? Do you have enough money? Blah, 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 blah. The point I'm getting at is you cannot allow the judge's questions to be the question that enters your brain. Your brain has to always be, how will my impairments limit me in this functional task, right? There's basically two types of categories of functional tasks, right? There's at work functional tasks. I'm going to put buttons. I'm going to beep, beep, beep on the fax machine. I'm going to click, click, click on the computer and pull the stuff out of the printer. I'm going to shovel, shovel, shovel and put the dirt over there, right? Vocational tasks. And then there's at home tasks, right? Vacuuming, cleaning, brushing your teeth, going and buying groceries, going to medical appointments, blah, 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 blah. So the point that I'm getting at here is you have to prepare yourself to answer the questions the proper way ahead of time. Many of you have attorneys that you can't get a hold of. I know it sucks. I get it. I understand it. When you pick a disability attorney, the main thing that I would say, like the main thing that you could trip over and like fall on your face with is if you use a service where their whole thing is to just, basically find a law firm for you, then that law firm is going to be paying a referral fee, which means they're not getting the money to work on your claim. So right off the bat, that law firm that's taking you on isn't taking you on with the intent to work as hard because they're not getting as much fee. So you can just call the law firms. You know what I mean? You just try to call the law firms. So when you're picking out an attorney, first off, actually go to where the attorneys are, the law firms. And then secondly, at the end of the day, be prepared to answer some basic questions because they are the exact same questions the judge is going to ask in the hearing. Let me give you some examples. In the hearing, the judge is going to ask you some basics. Now, these are training, this is training course stuff. Okay. So, these are not the exact questions. Okay, let's do this. I'll give you the training question, the little wheels, and then I'll give you the real question, the big wheels, right? All right, here we go. All right. Number one, what are your top 5 most severe medical conditions? Training question. Real question is, why did you file for disability benefits when you did? Okay. Training question. Okay. What were some of the accommodations that you were given at work before your termination occurred at your last vocation? That's the training question. Real question. What happened to your last job? Okay. Training question. Can you walk me through, have you or have you not been for the past 5 years a member of any clubs, unions, or received any security clearances, certificates, or diplomas that you've had or utilized over the past 5 years? Training question. Training question. Okay. Real question. So what have you been doing since you stopped working? Okay, so let me give you another example. A question. So when you go ahead and buy stuff, right? Walk me through this. What do you normally buy at the grocery store? Right? Training question. Actual question. Are you able to buy your own groceries? Okay. Training question. When it comes to your impairments, can you walk me through what are 2 symptoms and or signs per each impairment? Cool. Okay. Awesome. So the actual question for that would be, how do your impairments limit your ability to do at-home functions? Right? Well, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I have fog of the mind, I get these rashes, I get this, blah, 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 right? Okay. So training question. What are each of your medications and 2 side effects per each? Actual question in the hearing. Okay, are you currently taking any medications? It is not the judge's job to take you by the hand and give you the baby basic questions to get you ready for the hearing. It is not. I don't mean it in a mean way. Some people see these videos of that egotistical prick out there. I hate him so much. It's not. And that's not the point. The point is to get you to learn how this stuff works, so you do better, so that you keep your benefits or get your benefits, whatever. So the point is, okay, and this is what's important here. When the judge goes ahead and asks you questions, the judge is asking from the presentation perspective of himself, herself, and the government. What was missing from the record that the judge wants to find out about that you can fill in the gaps to? Okay? But that does not mean that the judge has to give you any airspace to explain yourself. All right, let me explain it another way. When you say something too simple and the judge takes that and uses it against you, if you don't have a cross-examination person there to then cross-examine you, then your first answer is your only answer. So like, like that's the thing is like when people are like, okay, why would I need a disability attorney? At this point, I tell them it's not my job to sell you on it. But in this video, I'm going to tell you the most important reason why. It's not to submit medical evidence. It's not. It's not to give you the template forms to do stuff. It's not. It is to cross-examine your butt in that hearing because you will say things that you don't properly explain. So if the judge is like, okay, can you explain to me, do you own a car? Yes, Your Honor. Okay, you have car insurance? Yes, Your Honor. But you claim you don't really drive that much anymore? Yes, Your Honor. Judge goes then on to the next question. Can you explain to me, are you taking care of any other family members? Boom, right there. My brain is saying, okay, cross-examination point pertaining to essentially driving. So then I come in, cross-examination. Mr. Smith, can you walk me through for a moment? When it comes to driving, do you have any difficulty utilizing the car? Oh, yeah, I have a hard time getting into it. Well, once you're in it, Mr. Smith, can you walk me through? Are you able to go ahead and use the mirrors and such and everything else in the car as appropriately, as you would to be able to drive safely? Oh, no, I have a hard time seeing the mirrors. I have a difficult time when the car bangs me up and down. I've been known to black out. I have a hard time, using my feet consistently to go ahead and push the pedal down enough because I have a loss of feeling in my feet. And, honestly, I've been in a lot of accidents recently. Okay, can you explain to me when was the last accident? And can you tell me what happened? Was there a police report filed? Oh, yeah. I accidentally ran into so-and-so, and I've been worried about it ever since because I don't have my license, really, really protected anymore. They might take it and it's not a good thing. And I'm a little bit worried. Cross-examination, because otherwise you are not going to get the answer you want on the file. Now, all right, I'm going to get past that because I don't want to spend too much time on one particular thing. Next thing, when you are doing the hearing, you have to understand there's 4 sections, sometimes 5. The 4 sections are as follows. Number 1, the introduction. They go through the administrative stuff. Number 2, your testimony. Number 3, the vocational expert's testimony. Number 4, the outro of the claim. Now, sometimes the judge will bring along a medical expert. Number 1, the intro. Number 2, the medical expert. Number 3, your testimony. Number 4, the vocational expert testimony. Number 4, the outro. You need to keep in mind that as you go through this hearing, you are not going to realize whether it's going good, well. Let me speak in a heightened fashion. Whether it is going well, that's just, I kind of, well, people like put like that extra breath on the W. Like people do that when they're rich and fancy. Well, no, that was shitty. But you know what I mean? Well, right? You guys think, you're going to know. And that's the thing. When you're in the hearing, okay, unless it's blaringly obvious and the judge states to you something that, there you go again, going back to country speech patterns. I did grow up on a farm. So the thing is this, when you're sitting there, do not worry about whether it's going well or not. Do not worry about it. Worry about the next section. Prepare your mind for the next section. Okay? In the introduction, you're hearing a bunch of stuff. You're starting to get worried. What does that mean? I don't know what that acronym is. Shit, they're talking about stuff I don't even know. It's like a foreign language. No. Worry about the next section. It is crucial. It is crucial for you to be able to go ahead and keep your brain moving. Why do I say that? People who feel that something's going wrong in their hearing, And I mean, sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes the judge is, well, blah, blah, blah. I saw that you were claiming you weren't working, but yet there's a hospital note here where you were painting on a ladder. Care to explain? Blah, 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 blah. Right? Okay. It is crucial for you to keep the hearing going in your brain. If you get stuck, you will freeze. If you freeze and you don't have an attorney there, bad. Because then the judge, hopefully they're not the type that's going to take advantage of you in that situation. Although I know many judges that do. Okay. Now, with that said, very important. Okay. If you do freeze and the judge asks you a question, your number one job is to buy more time. Your Honor, can you please repeat the question? Your Honor, my apologies. I couldn't think for that moment. I didn't hear you. Your Honor, can my attorney rephrase that question for me? Your Honor, I blanked out. Can you please help me? I don't know what you said there. Your job is to buy more time. That's the reality, okay? Now, with that said, and I think the main thing you've got to keep in mind is that as you are delivering information to the judge, you are either falling into one of three categories. Number one, you have no idea what you're doing. You showed up, you haven't had any testimony preparation, and you're winging it. These people think they did the best job out of everybody. These people are like, I did a great job. I'm amazing. If you ever walk out of a Social Security disability hearing thinking that you are like the all-star, that you did amazing, that means you don't know shit about how the process works, because you would know that you would have missed things if you actually knew what you were doing. All right, so that's category one. Category one are the people who hire like the big box law firms where they never talk to their attorney, the people who wing it on their own, stuff like that. Okay. Then you get to category two, the people who are basically neutral in it. They've had a little bit of training. They watch some videos. They're going into it. They know they're not going to do great. It is what it is. They're just getting through it. Then you have the people who are super trained, right? They've run the questions. They've done it with their attorney. They've hit the ball against the wall multiple times. Now, out of the following category of people, who thinks they did the worst at the end of the day on average? Well, it's the people who are super trained on what they know to do, because they know the opportunities they missed because they knew why the questions were coming. Who are the people who have the biggest ego? Well, they're the people who just winged it. The people who had no idea what was going on. I did amazing. I answered every question. No, those are the ones where I watch it. I'm just like, and I had one of those the other day. The guy, I listened to the hearing, recording. And the guy was like, yeah, it's amazing. I just answered every question right. And then I went over some of the questions with him. I was like, why did you say that? And he's like, well, this? It's incredible. I was like, man, you killed your claim. You know what I mean? You explained, that you had the capacity to go back to a full-time job as a result of you wanting to quasi showboats. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? And then the depression, and then I'm the asshole, but it's just fine. You know what I mean? I can be it is what it is. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So what I've realized with this is that you have to understand it's not the judge's job. I mean, technically it is the judge's job to like really magically figure out and read every single word and have everything memorized, but it's impossible. There's no way they could know your entire record backwards and forwards. There's just no way, And I think like at the end of the day, what's really crucial with this is that you have to invest in yourself when you're disabled. And I know some of you are saying, well, I can't because I'm disabled. And I get it. I really do get it. But very rarely do I come across a claimant. I get a lot of claimants who tell me they're not going to be able to memorize answers or memorize directional cues of what's coming next, what's going on, etc. I get a lot of claimants who basically will say to me, I'm never going to be able to do this. 99% of the time, you can get a person to the level they need to actually be at when they started off believing that they were going to fail. So one of the things you have to learn about working with disabled people is that they used to be either somebody who would lose a lot and are used to losing and feel happy and calm and good with losing, or they used to be a person that would win a lot and now they're super depressed because at the end of the day, now they're losing left and right because now they've got a disability, they don't have money, it sucks. Okay. So the main thing that I would project to you about this particular item is that when you have essentially people coming from different backgrounds, you have some people who have never worked a day in their life. They have no intention of ever working. You have some people who have worked every day in their life and all they want to do is go back to work because it gave them purpose. The main thing I want you to remember with this whole situation is that you are talking to the judge, who is a human being who had to show up, likely a veteran, likely disabled in some ways, because remember, disabled veterans, they get a big point boost to become judges. So likely a veteran, likely to be disabled in some way, likely a minority, right? An individual that is not white, right? Not a white female, not a white male. So you're talking to this individual, and you have to some degree understand where they're coming from. And that's one thing people hate. They're like, no, the judge has to be neutral and perfect and impartial and blah, 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 blah. No. You have to understand that the judge is a human being. They have the opportunity to approve you or deny your claim. They approve you, your life gets really good, or at least better from what it was. They deny you, you know, you're going to be, that judge, how dare they? I can't believe, right? You know, wave the finger as much as you can. The key to this thing, to understanding these hearings, is that you are going into them with the intention of proving that you are unable to work, not that the judge is going to hear you. That's not how this works. That's not how this works. It's that you are going to show the judge how you would be vocationally unavailable to complete certain tasks. Now, with that said, considering all the stuff we've talked about, one thing I want you to understand about this entire process, and I think it's incredibly important. One thing I want you to understand about this entire process is that at the end of the day, you are never as good as you think you're going to be, and you're never as bad as you think you're going to be, although I've seen some that have surprised me on that. One thing I want you to keep in mind, and I think it's important, is that when you're preparing for the hearing, don't focus so much on your emotions. Focus more on the factual bullet points. What is the timeline of surgeries that occurred? When were the different medications prescribed, and when were they increased or decreased? What were the types of programs and therapies that you used on the timeline? Focus on the facts. You're there because you're going to provide the facts, or at least the details in between stuff. So the point that I'm getting at, just to be super clear with this, just to kind of help you understand it, is that at the end of the day, you are not there to provide law. You don't know what it is. You don't know what it is, right? I've had people cite law to me, and then I'm like, yeah, but remember the case law changed that. And then they're like, oh, you know, you're not there to provide law. You're there to provide a factual understanding of what's in the record to make it make sense. To make it make sense. Know what school you went to and what degree you achieved and when you got that degree. Know the facts. Here's one question that a lot of you guys suck at. I'm going to say it to you, and I don't mean it in a mean way. I love all of you. I want to give you a big hug. I hope your significant other gives you a good belly rub, all that stuff, okay? Here's one question you guys tend to suck at. Here we go. What are your top 5 impairments? And for each impairment, what is the strongest evidence that shows that you are suffering from that impairment in a severe way? Oh, well, I wake up and I feel terrible. No. The strongest evidence that you have for your impairment to show that it is severe, that impairment is restricting you in a severe way, that impairment is messing up your ability to do stuff in a severe way. Severe way is not, oh, I just feel tired sometimes. That is not a severe way. The best evidence I have for my depression is that I was in a mental facility for 6 nights as a result of being so low that I left my house and basically never made it to my friend's place, who I was seeking comfort from. And I was arrested outside of a Pizza Hut because I was screaming at somebody. Great evidence. What is your best evidence for the classic degenerative disc disorder? For DDD, Okay. My best evidence is I underwent a surgery, underwent another surgery, underwent a third surgery that was corrective surgery. I now have to utilize a walker with a seat. I have a pull-up rope from my bed to help me pull my body up. And basically, I struggle with standing in a proper erect position because my legs shake so much. Because of a lot of the issues I'm having with my spinal column when it relates to sending directional information to my limbs. Great evidence. If you are not able to boil down the best evidence for each impairment, then you are not ready for your Social Security disability hearing. Why? Because at the end of the day, like, and look, some of you guys, like, this always happens too. I'll get some people that are like offended by this video. How dare you, sir? Huh? How dare you give me such egotistical philanthropy of fluff? Look, you gotta understand, like, you can win benefits or not. You can use techniques or not. But at the end of the day, if you had the opportunity, to run over hot coals and you had the technique of putting shoes on, you'd put those shoes on. If you had the technique of spraying it down with water first, you would use that technique, right? Okay. If you had the technique of grabbing a rope above you and climbing your way past them, you would use that technique. A lot of people, and they're rare, you only hear this from people who have been found disabled way back in the day. You don't hear it from people nowadays. People back in the day, they're like, if you're just truly disabled, you have nothing to worry about. Everything's cool. Nothing to worry about. Those people only exist for those who are found disabled, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Okay? They're becoming a rare and rare commodity because, the people nowadays, they realize how like unfair it is. Like, I can't believe it's not butter, It's not the same, like we're approving a massive amount of people, where it's not that program. Like a lot of the people found disabled back in the day, I say this, they become horrified, but a lot of those people found disabled back in the day would de facto not be found disabled today. The thing I want you to remember is that when you try to do this hearing, that you have to go into it knowing the outcome that you want and the reasoning that gives you that decision. So one of the weird things that always happens to me is I'll get a claimant, they go to a hearing, they get denied, right? And then they call me, rah! And sometimes they like refile a new claim right away. They don't go to appeals counsel, whatever. And so if they refile a claim right away, or they're going to appeals counsel, because appeals counsel, you have remand back to the ALJ, it's a possibility. I always say to them like, hey, can you walk me through what are your top 5 most severe impairments? And they don't know. They don't know. Then I ask them, okay, well, can you walk me through what are your medications and, their side effects? I don't know. Okay. What were the functions that you performed at your last job? Well, I don't know. I would call people. It's just like all the basic stuff you have to know to succeed well, to use those, abilities, those like theories as to how to win. You don't use them. It's so crucial that you just get good at some of them. You know what I mean? You don't have to be great at all of them. You just get at some of them you got to be good at. So, all right. With that said, we have covered a ton of stuff. If this video helped you in any way, please remember to like the video. There's only 67 people who liked it. Please give it some likes. Attorney Walter Hnot, the most viewed, subscribed to, clicked on Disability Attorney in America. With that said, please head over to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida. Throw some stars up there if you want. You don't have to, but I always like waking up to them. I also go live on Mondays and Thursdays. Tonight, I'm about to go live at the next video game, about 10, 15 minutes, and I will answer questions for free. Also, if you want a 1-hour consultation, a mini contract is below. Put you on the calendar and we do an hour. I'll catch you a little bit later. I'll see you at the next video shortly. Have a wonderful, wonderful night, and we will go from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. Bye-bye.